Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. This past week, some parts of Oklahoma saw the fourth late freeze of the season, and we're just now getting an idea of the damage from the earliest event.
As we go back here the last month and a half, I had some hope once we started receiving moisture that maybe things were going to look better for us wheat producers out there. But I think right now the big word that producers are concerned about is freeze, freeze, and more freeze.
We've actually had 4 freeze events now on this crop. There is some damage from that last freeze, but there's significant damage from the first freeze that's really showing up now.
Roger Fisher has been farming and ranching in Tillman County for more than 30 years. And he is used to challenges. But this year, they seem to be piling up.
The freeze on top of the extremely dry conditions all winter. The crop was in a weakened state, and it was still very dormant, really sitting there even in the middle of March, where we're starting to break dormancy. This crop was still fairly dormant because of the lack of moisture, and then that freeze came on top of it and really significantly impacted the ability for that wheat to make a crop.
Tillman County Extension educator Aaron Henson gave me a tour of the variety of damage seen across the area's wheat crops.
Some of the damage, and some of the easy visible damage is heads like this.
Right.
And you'll see the top, and you'll look at the top half anyways of this head. It is white in color. And is damaged from the freeze damage. There's other ones like this here, and this plant here, and I'll kind of pull this back where you can see it, but this plant here is actually in the same stage, but it actually got affected worse. And this is actually the flag leaf that's dead, and this has been dead for several days now. Here's another good example, and I'll pull over here to you. This is you see the head for the most part is good, but the awns. And the awns is where the energy comes down into the actual head. When you have awn damage, you'll actually have some grain damage also, because this is where all the nutrients go through down to the head. So and that's a pretty good picture of the awns damage. Right, exactly.
And that is just a sample from standing in one spot.
Every field's different. We can walk 20 feet from here, and I could give you my honest best guess of what this damage to this field is standing here where we are. We can go 20 feet from here, and that estimate would be different.
So a challenge for producers to be patient, wait for the picture of damage to fully form, and then get insurance adjusters into the field. But patience with wheat is hard to have in an area of Oklahoma better known for cotton.
Everything in cotton is about managing for earliness.
I spoke with Randy Bowman from Oklahoma State University's Southwest Research and Extension Center near Altus.
Anytime that we look at trying to grow non-irrigated cotton following a failed non-irrigated wheat crop, there's a lot of issues that come into play there. The only thing that I can suggest is that producers really need to be on point with this particular situation and visit with their crop insurance agents, because based on what I've been told by various insurance agents, it is going to be a highly individual situation. There's a lot of things that come into play, but certainly it's probably not insurmountable if guys want to try to get a cotton crop established. There's a lot of potential there for guys to make some improvements in their soil quality overall. They can help break the wheat weed and disease cycle, perhaps, through a rotation. And we have a lot of good varieties and transgenic trait technologies that can help that along.
You can learn more about those varieties and hear more of my conversation with Randy Bowman and more from Mike Schulte on our website, sunup.okstate.edu. Meanwhile, Roger Fisher reminds us that this isn't the first challenge Oklahoma agriculture has faced.
We're accustomed to these kind of extremes in this part of the state, and this is our history, and we learn to manage with it, and it'll be okay.
For more on the crop insurance picture, we turn to our ag policy specialist, Jody Campeacci, for guidance.
Call their crop insurance agent, talk to them, have an adjuster come out before they do anything, before they decide to graze it or hay it or whatever their decision is going to be. That's the best choice. And one thing that's probably going to happen across the state is there's likely going to be a lot of claims. So if they think that they may want to file a claim, they may want to go ahead and call their agent and at least get on the list, because there may be a bit of a backlog of people waiting on adjusters to come out.
And taking that advice, we headed to Piedmont to see crop insurance agent Bambi Sidwell.
Typically, the adjusters are waiting 7 to 10 days after the latest freeze, so that the most damage can be prevalent when they come out there to the field and look to assess the damage.
Okay. Once you're on the list, you know that your adjuster is going to come out and take a look. What does a producer need to do in the meantime?
The most important thing is that the producer does not go in and destroy that crop, doesn't put cattle out on it or do anything prior to the adjuster's approval. The adjusters are going to come out there. Right now the wheat looks pretty green. We're not quite to the heading stage yet. They're still going to be counting the green tillers. It's going to be really hard to give a full adjustment until it comes out to the heading stage, but the most important thing is that the farmer does not destroy that crop before it is released by the adjuster.
So that the adjuster and the agent can get an accurate picture?
It basically is, as far as a loss goes, if a farmer does have freeze damage and comes out there and destroys that crop, we aren't going to be able to appraise what kind of damage he had because the crop is destroyed. A lot of times right now, if a farmer knows he has damage because he's cut open the stem and he's determined that he has damage, maybe we can't adjust it out yet. With an adjuster's approval, a farmer can leave strips in the field if they want to go ahead and swath it and put cattle on it, whatever. But it is important that they have a sign-off from the adjuster. But what the adjuster is looking for, right now we are not to the heading stage, as I mentioned, so they're going to be looking at green tillers and they have to count those green tillers. But once the state becomes fully headed out, they will be able to then count the heads. Of course, the white heads are not going to feel those have immediate freeze damage. At that time, they're going to be able to give a more accurate appraisal of what the crop's going to be.
Okay, and there are some limitations too, right? As to how much you guys can do?
A lot, what we're seeing in the state right now, it's really hard to assess how much damage we really do have. Maybe that if we don't have a field full of damage, the producer might end up going and cutting it once harvest gets here. However, his yield might be lower because maybe all the heads didn't fill, which we would know that once we do a bushel count at harvest time. However, if a majority of field looks freeze damage, they would, as long as they accept the appraisal they get, they would be able to go in and destroy the crop as they see fit.
Okay, so bottom line, get on the waiting list and don't do anything.
Absolutely. Until they speak with an adjuster and sign that loss paperwork, it's very important they don't go out there and destroy that crop because it will not void the insurance, but there wouldn't be an appraisal for the farmer producer to be paid on the damage.
Wheat quality and prices are also at play with federal programs, which have an upcoming deadline.
Producers will need to decide if they want to enroll in the Direct and Counter-Cyclical Payment Program or the acre program by June 1st. And the way it's looking right now, if the state wheat yields are low, and some of the preliminary estimates are looking like wheat may be damaged in large parts of the state. So if the state yield is low, producers may want to enroll in acre. I'll be having some acre estimates out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. The first preliminary yield estimate comes out on May 10th, so I'll know a little bit more on May 10th on what the 2013 acre payment is going to look like and if it looks like producers may want to enroll in it.
Getting the highest percentage of cows rebred during the upcoming breeding season, of course, is an important goal for any cow-calf operation. If you've got some cows this spring that are just a little bit marginal in body condition and you're concerned about whether they're going to return to heat cycles and get rebred in the upcoming breeding season, there's a management tool that you might try that'll help improve that rebreeding percentage on some of these marginal cows just a little bit. The tool I'm talking about is short-term calf removal. What do I mean by that? Well, short-term calf removal is just this business of physically sorting the calves into another pasture or another trap away from the cows for 48 hours. Just merely making sure they're on a different side of the fence for that time frame. What we're doing is tricking Mother Nature for that 48 hours into maybe having her think that that calf has been weaned. And a few of those cows then will start to turn loose of the hormones that allow them to start to recycle and rebreed. If you look at some data that comes from Kansas State University about 30 years ago, it's a good idea of what all of the research data that has been done in several universities has shown, and that is that in this particular case, there was a 6% increase in the percentage of those cows that were rebred in the upcoming breeding season by having short-term calf removal performed on them. Now, you might be concerned about the calves during this 48 hours. First of all, we want to make sure that there's plenty of water available for those calves, and some producers will put out a little sweet feed, have that available in some pans or some low bunks for those calves to reach. Quite frankly, they probably won't eat very much, but having something there to perhaps make them a little more calm, less restless, would be helpful. But 48 hours is the optimum time frame. 24 hours looks to be too short, doesn't have much of an impact. We've looked at as far as 96 hours removal here at Oklahoma State University, and that didn't give us any advantage over 48. So I think we want to stick with that. I want to remind you, 48-hour calf removal is something that's not powerful enough to increase the breeding percentage on real thin cows. And if cows are in already good body condition, it won't have much impact at all. So it's for those marginal cows that the 48-hour calf separation will have some real advantages. If you've got some cows in that situation, you might try that this spring going into the upcoming breeding season and see if you can increase the rebreeding percentage on some of the cows in your herd. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, we've been talking a lot about freeze damage in wheat this week. What's the word on the street in terms of production?
Well, if you look at past production, the 5-year average for the United States is 951 million bushels. For Oklahoma, it's 118 million bushels. Last year, the hard red winter wheat crop was just slightly over 1 billion bushels, and in Oklahoma was 155 million. If you look at 2011, the drought-stricken year, it was 780 million bushels of hard red winter wheat in the U.S. and only 70 in Oklahoma. The average bushels per acre for Oklahoma is 30 bushels.
Okay, what's the prediction then for this year?
Well, if getting information from analysts on prediction, especially with the recent freezes and the drought going on, is like pulling teeth. But I think for Oklahoma, probably somewhere around 100 million, 105 million bushels. For the United States, probably somewhere around 900 million.
Okay, and for the upcoming crop, I understand we had an increase in planted acres?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that we can maybe be at that 100 million bushels. If you look back at 2011, we planted 5.1 million acres. This year we planted 5.5 million acres. So that 400,000 acres, we can have a little lower yields and still have higher production relative to other years.
Okay, let's talk about prices now. Have you seen an impact on prices because of the news of the freeze?
Well, as you know, the prices have been wandering around for about the last month, been pretty stable. But where we've seen the changes is in the carry in the market. That's say compare the wheat July contract at around $7.45 to the December $7.73. That's a 28-cent what we call carry there, or spread. You go back a couple weeks or a month or so, that was at 35 cents. And so what the market's telling you is that they're going to want you to sell that wheat at harvest. They're going to need it at harvest, and probably more at harvest than they will in December. Now, if you look at corn, it's $6.23 on the July and $5.29 on the December, which again, they're saying we've got short corn right now, but we're expecting to have a lot of corn in December.
Okay, with this in mind, what's the market then offering for harvest delivery wheat?
Well, most elevators in Oklahoma for harvest delivered are offering between a -39 and say a minus 50 cents. That's right at $7 for harvest forward contracts.
Okay, Kim Anderson, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet Weather Report. Just as farmers were assessing freeze damage from April 18th and 19th, they were hit with another round of frigid weather. A map showing the lows and freeze hours for Tuesday and Wednesday of this week has some bone-chilling numbers on it. Boise City had a low of 15 degrees and was below freezing for 32 hours out of 48. Woodward had a low of 24 with 20 hours below freezing. A little farther south at Weatherford, the recorded low was 23 degrees with 8 hours below freezing. This latest round of cold could add even more damage to wheat and canola crops that have already suffered from winter drought and 2 earlier rounds of freezing weather this April. Colder air temperatures have led to cooler soil temperatures. A map of 3-day soil temperature averages from midweek at 4 inches deep under bare soil has values predominantly in the 50s, which is cool for spring planted crops. A chart of Weatherford's soil temperatures for 4 inches under bare soil shows how the cold air events have driven down the soil temperature. The graph shows soil temperatures dropping below 40 degrees the morning of April 19th and again on April 24th. Hopefully, that was the last of the freezing temperatures, and spring's warmth will stay with us from now on. Gary, how has the rain eased our drought?
Good morning, everybody. Certainly a pleasure to be back on SUNUP this week. And we've had quite the exciting week of weather since I talked to you last. We've had tornadoes, large hail, dust storms, freezing rain, snow, lots of freezing temperatures, and of course lots of heavy rainfall in certain areas. So we're going to start out with the rainfall map from basically the last 7 to 10 days and see what we have to work with the most current drought monitor map. This map covers basically the last 10 days from the Oklahoma Mesonet, and we can see we've had about 3 to 8 inches along a narrow strip along the I-44 corridor. So when we look at that and we try and configure this week's drought monitor map, at least we saw the chance for more improvements. So let's take a look at the latest map released on Thursday morning. We can see more of eastern Oklahoma, even over into central Oklahoma. We have more areas with completely drought-free conditions. Now we still have those areas of D4 and D3 out across western, south central, and the Panhandle, and also up in north central Oklahoma. So we really need those rainfalls to start spreading to the north and south, and then of course farther out to the west. Let's take a look at the hours below freezing map from the Oklahoma Mesonet since April 1st, and we can see out in the Panhandle they've had up to 152 hours below 32 degrees, at or below 32 degrees, and that decreases to just a few hours across east central Oklahoma. So we take a look at last year's map, and this covers the entire spring. Basically, we've had more hours below freezing just in April this year than we had all of last spring. So quite a different year that we've had this year than last year. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Dave Lallman, our Extension beef cattle specialist, joins us now. And Dave, we've seen some rain around the state, but producers in western Oklahoma still really feeling the effects of the drought. How are they coping, and what are you hearing from them?
Well, I think a lot of them still are trying to hold on to at least a core group of cows, whether it be commercial or seed stock operation, and struggling to find resource. I think a lot of them may be having to concentrate their cows around a water resource, and that's a particular struggle for many.
And you've gotten some calls on dry lot feeding. What kind of advice are you giving producers if they're considering that?
Dry lot feeding would be a way to kind of get through a difficult period. It'd also be a way to delay turnout on some of their pastures, even in the central and eastern part of the state, as our agronomists and range specialists tell us that might be good in the long term for our forages this year. That is to delay turnout. But basically all we're going to do is put the cows in a dry lot area or a sacrifice pasture and feed concentrate instead of feed hay or let them graze.
Okay, so what's the best way to kind of set that up, and what kind of things do you feed them?
Well, the nice thing about feeding the concentrate is it doesn't take hay, and a lot of people, or very much hay, a lot of people are out of hay, and it's very expensive anyway. So a very simple program for, let's say, a cow in middle stage of gestation. 1,200 pound beef cow would be something like, say, 6 pounds of, we'll just say prairie hay, 4 pounds of dried distiller grains, and 4 pounds of cracked corn. Okay, and then you'd have to include a mineral supplement with that that's high in calcium. But those are the major components. That would cost on today's market somewhere around about $1.20 a day. And to do that with hay, if you had to go purchase hay and feed those cows and a little bit of high protein supplement, would cost around $1.40. So, you know, you might save a little bit because you're using concentrate and rather than purchasing hay. Not going to save a lot, but it would certainly be a way to help people extend the time period when those cattle are off of their pastures.
Okay. Is early weaning also an option for producers wanting to hang on to some of their herd?
That would be another management strategy that they could implement. It's kind of out in left field, but because it requires quite a bit of management and labor. At OSU several years ago, there was some experiments done where calves were weaned at 45 to 60 days of age. And so they're pretty young and small, but you can pull them off the cow, put them in a dry lot, and feed a really high quality concentrate diet to those little calves. And believe it or not, they can get by and grow and thrive on concentrate feed without mother's milk. But it has to be a very specifically formulated diet, and I just encourage people, if they want to consider that, to contact a nutritionist or an extension educator to help them with that. But the nice thing about that, Lyndall, is that it reduces the nutrient requirements of the cow by about 20%. Basically, it reduces their grazing pressure by 20%. Or you could go ahead and market some of those cows, let's say the older cows, and keep those calves in the dry lot for 45 to 60 days, and then turn them out later in the summer when they're big enough to utilize grass, and come this fall, that way you'd still have your entire calf crop to sell.
Okay, a couple of tips for continuing to manage the cattle during the drought. And for some more tips and a fact sheet on this topic, you can just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk about a little tip about keeping your air hose from getting tangled.
Here's a real simple solution, just a 5-gallon oil bucket, and then throw your air hose in the middle of it.
You can take it and knock a hole in the bottom of the bucket and run your male end out here that you can pull out and hook to your compressor, and the rest of it stays coiled and easy to manage.
Yeah, you can just, once you start pulling on it, it just comes right out and it won't tangle up, and if you curl it up nice and neat when you go back in with it, well, it'll extract nice and even too.
So if you're taking that air hose from your shop, you know, on your service truck or wherever it may be to a job site with a remote compressor, it's all self-contained, easy to grab it and go.
But I generally in my shop don't have one of these, so when I drag my air hose, I try to collect everything in my shop as I'm going out with the door with my air hose. So this is a good tip to keep that organized.
That's it this week on Shop Stop. We'll see you next week.
This time of year, a lot of agricultural students have their sights set on graduation. And without question, the next phase of their life will include technology. SUNUP intern Samantha Smith picks up the story from there.
Caitlin Nelson is a senior in agricultural communications.
I think having even a slight understanding of the technologies that are out there is going to help all of us in this class.
The class is called Precision Agriculture, and Brian Arnall is the teacher.
This is a very diverse group. We have horticulture, plant and soil science, ag biz, ag education, animal science, ag communication, and ag engineers. So they're all going to go out in different realms, in different worlds. We try to cover a lot of the relevant precision ag technologies, capabilities that are out there, from yield monitors to variable rate applications, sensors, and even, as you see in the background, you know, social media and the internet. People around the world, groups around the world are using more and more of these technologies every day. It's not just in the machine, it's handheld units, it's applications on their iPads, iPhones that they have to enter data into. So Almost all of our graduates are coming out needing to have at least some base knowledge of technologies.
As we all know with technology, change is a driving force. But with rapid change comes job growth.
We have technology changing during the semester. I may present something at the first semester, by the end of it, it's already outdated and antiquated. And so, it's such a rapid changing environment, you just never know what's going to come next.
Precision agriculture doesn't have enough people that can keep up with the technology. There's so many jobs that are open currently.
People go to work with Monsanto, students go to work with Pioneer, Syngenta as sales. Some will go as agronomists, may work as a crop consultant. Many of the engineers will go work for companies building machinery. So the group will split into many different directions.
To experience just one of those directions they could take, the class took a trip to SST, a precision ag software company located in Stillwater.
Primarily the focus is for them to better learn what we are here at SST, and for us to reach out to them, to let them know that we can be a resource for them after graduation and while they're in school.
Basically, we just want to show the students our interest in precision ag and maybe get them more interested in what we're doing. And that way, whenever they graduate OSU and go out to the real world, they'll be able to, take our thinkings of what's going on here and maybe help apply that out to the real world.
Their mapping is state of the art. They're the only company in the world that does it, and they're really good at it. And going there and seeing that and having a chance to work on their programs was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
An opportunity to build today's leaders for tomorrow's agriculture. For SUNUP, I'm Samantha Smith.
That does it for us this week. Remember, you can see us anytime on our website, sunup.okstate.edu. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.